very much. Anne-Marie is an associate professor of Art University in the Department of Visual and Performing Arts at FGCU. She has advanced degrees in medieval studies and library science and a PhD in art history from Columbia University. Prior to coming to FGCU in 2008, she was assistant professor of Western medieval art at Princeton University. She summers in France and winters on Sanibel. We know her best for her singing talent and all her volunteer work at St. Michael's. I'll introduce Eric now. Eric is our music director at St. Michael's. He offers private piano lessons at the Sanibel studio. Eric is a pianist, composer, and a musicologist. He received advanced degrees in music, piano performance, and a PhD in musicology at UC Santa Barbara.
Whoa!
Eric summers in New Hampshire and winters here on Sanibel. This past Saturday afternoon, Eric and Renata Arado performed a wonderful dual recital program of piano and violin music in our sanctuary. Please welcome Anne-Marie and Eric.
Well, I want to thank you all very much for coming today. I really appreciate it. I have someone who can't see me at all, who's behind a pillar and may wish to move somewhere. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to start with a little song. What I'm asking people to do is to sing, because, as you know, I sang all weekend, and I don't have the voice that I usually have, so I'm going to need some help from the audience. You have a handout. The handout basically tracks what I'm talking about, but it gives you little pictures and also the music. The reason I give it out is because, although this is a fantastic piece of equipment here, it's not really huge, so that way you'll have a chance to see, you know, what I'm talking about, but I'll have to kind of move between those two things. So I'm going to ask Eric to give us a little introduction, and let's just give the first verse of what star, first two verses of what star is this, to get us in the mood. It's going to be about a series of works of art. Most of them come from the early Netherlandish Renaissance, so you don't have to know any more than that. It's basically what is now Belgium and Holland. And I'm showing you a group of pieces that are somewhat related, and they're all fascinating in that they go way beyond telling the basic story. So you all know the basic story of the birth of Christ, and when we look at some of these paintings, we're going to see that they are also telling the basic story. And so we're going to see some shepherds, and we'll see some kings, and we'll see some nativities. But what I'm going to try and talk about is the underpinnings of these stories, and what is visible in here that is meant to be discovered on closer examination. This talk should only last about a half an hour. I'm not going to cover a whole lot of material, but I'm going to end up talking a little bit about a couple of major themes, and then at the end we'll do a little bit on the Three Kings. Because when I was at Shell Point last Christmas, a year ago, practically today, I left out the Three Kings, and I got some flack for leaving out the Three Kings. So I'm going to put the Three Kings in today. Okay, so this is Roger van der Weyden. the Three Kings altarpiece. It's also called the Columba altarpiece. It dates from the middle of the 15th century. And we see in this piece a number of themes that we're going to see in several different works. For one thing, the scene, of course, of the Three Kings, it takes place in a building. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of stables. This doesn't exactly correspond to all the stables I've seen. It has, yes, it has a thatched roof in really bad condition, so it is really falling down. But the underpinnings of this was actually a pretty substantial stone structure that has been abandoned and is being reused, repurposed as a stable. So that's one thing. It has the classic ox and the ass, for example, and all the people coming to see the Christ child. You can just see, it looks like a daytime scene from behind, but you can see the star just peeking around the building at the top. Another aspect of this building is that it has some interesting little details in it. For one thing, underneath these people, there appears to be some kind of hole or cave. There's a number of scary-looking holes, and we see that same motif appear in more than one painting. So you might ask yourself, why does he put a hole right here? And the second little detail I want to point out, this is a very fuzzy detail because to make it even visible, I had to make it brighter and also blow it up way too far. But I think you can see that this is the crucifixion, which is right here.
Oh, yes.
So that leads us to a question of, what is this anomaly? What is this chronological anomaly? Why do we have the crucifixion overhanging this birth? And the obvious answer is that the crucifixion is implied by the birth and reciprocally. So this, it brings us a degree of poignancy into this because we're all happy for Christmas, but we have to know why this child was born and what fate awaits him. So this and the kind of threatening hole underneath add an extra dimension of a little bit disturbance. It's not just all, mistletoe and holly. That same hole reappears in another piece by the same artist Rogier van der Weyden. This altarpiece is actually a triptych. Both of them are triptychs. This is the center panel also. And we see the same feature of a repurposed but obviously substantial building, stone building with round arches and a nice column, and then underneath, even more dramatically, holes. And one has a grate over it and one doesn't. And for years, I puzzled over those holes. Like, what is that hole about? You don't just accidentally put a hole in the middle of your painting, right? So I found an answer. I don't know if it's the right answer, but I hope will add something to this. This is a book of hours. It's a little later, 1465, not that much later, from the same general area, from Bruges in Belgium. And this shows, actually, it's a rare scene showing the incarnation. So the moment of the incarnation. Now, it's not occurring in the setting you expect. It's not a nativity scene, it's not an annunciation scene, it's God the Father up at the top sending a little baby down on a ray of light to the waiting Jews who are looking forward to that. And these are the people who are huddling in the darkness, according to the prophecies of Isaiah. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who lived in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shined. For a child has been born for us, a son given to us. Authority rests on his shoulders. He is named Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So this is the prophetic voice. The prophetic voice that is trying to anticipate the birth of Christ. In a book of hours, which is a prayer book, you have many opportunities to make pictures, so you don't have to stuff it all into one page. To illustrate that, I thought it would be fun to sing Comfort, Comfort, which I know you all heard this weekend, but Eric is going to sing. And in this case, we're not going to sing the whole thing, we're just going to sing verses 1 and 4. these Netherlandish painters is that they're trying to tell, is this not working? They're trying to tell more than just the story. They're trying to bring into our minds the prophets and the prophecies, so that when you have a single altarpiece, it will produce in the mind of the viewer all the anticipatory prophecies that are implied by that. This is a funny little scene. This is quite an unusual scene. It's pretty silly, actually, but when I tell you it's a small little book, right? So it looks kind of crazy blown up. But. And that, of course, is that's the meaning behind this nativity scene by another Netherlandish artist, Hugo van der Goes. He's a wonderful artist, and he shows the shepherds coming to the Christ child. With the prophets are now pulling back the curtain so that we can see into this scene. So they are revealing what is to come. I also wanted to point out in this case, the sheaf of wheat that is lying in the front, that obviously is reminding us that the child in the manger is also the wafer on the altar. He's the bread that is to come. So again, and what's interesting about these artists is that it's this particular group. This thing is going in and out. This didn't happen in Italy nearly as much. This is very much a Netherlandish thing to try and build in all this kind of theological richness. Of course, how would people know how to interpret something like this? Well, they go to church. And many of them are literate and have little prayer books, and they read the Psalms. That's where they learned how to read. Mostly was out of the Psalter. So I think we don't give them enough credit for how much they knew at this time and were able to put these things together. I also don't think we give enough credit to the artists as theologians, the artists thinking theologically and finding visual ways to represent ideas. It's beautiful. So we just did Comfort, Comfort. And now I wanted to turn to another scene and another theme. Now we're not quite up to the Magi yet. I'm sorry, I'm always in the wrong place for the... I'm not quite up to the Magi yet, but this happens to be a Magi scene. It's an interesting example of how creative artists were in the 15th century in the Netherlands to express both an iconic idea of the main scene and then the history, the narrative part of the story. So in this case, this is a book from a page from a book of hours. It sets a little scene into a bigger scene. The bigger scene has the journey of the Magi, their visit to Herod, and you can see them in the very far distance, coming and going. And then here is the scene where they're actually coming to the Christ child. But the piece of this that I wanted to point out, first of all, again, we have a wrecked building that is a solid building, but that is falling apart. By now you should be wondering, well, what is that building about? And I think when you see an iconographic image like, let's just turn an iconic image like that.
Then you lose the art.
Okay, when you see an iconic image like that keeps coming back, a motif, you have to ask yourself, it must be meaningful, right? And in this case, I think what is meaningful is that the old is crumbling away. The old temple is dissolving, and a new structure hasn't been built yet, but is in the process of being built. So we don't have the church yet, but what we have is Christ and Mary, and the next step then will be the building of the church. But so the old is now past and gone, or going. And just to show the three kings coming in to Herod, there's wonderful detail in all these little things. These were meant to be mulled over, spent time with. This is not something you just glance at and move away. Remember that they didn't have picture books, except handmade picture books at this time. We're inundated with imagery, so we see stuff all the time, and we've learned to not really look at it. But in those days, they hardly had pictures to look at, and so they spent a lot of time with the few pictures they had. Now, this image has an extra little piece to it that I thought was kind of interesting and got me thinking again, which is the canopy, or the sheet, the red sheet, that is thrown over a framework over the bed. And you don't see that very often in a manger scene, that particular configuration. So what is that about? So I started thinking about that, and I remembered seeing something sort of like that in the past. For example, typically in an Annunciation scene in early Netherlandish art, you very often see it taking place in a bedroom. Now, why a bedroom? And there's always a bed, and it's always a red canopy on that bed, or red covering on that bed. So why the bedroom? There's nothing in the Bible that says that it was in a bedroom that this took place, and it's not the only place you see an Annunciation, but it's very common. So this again is Roger van der Weyden. Can you tell he's one of my favorite artists? This is the left hand of that triptych of the Columba altarpiece that I just showed you. Well, in New York City, how many people have been to New York City? How many people have been to the Cloisters Museum? Okay, so you may remember at the Cloisters Museum, sometimes there is on exhibition this wonderful tapestry. It's not huge, it's sort of an altar frontal, I think, is probably what it is. It's dimensions and also general size. But it was made in the same area as these paintings, and it has in it an Annunciation scene. Now the Annunciation scene is taking place in this bizarre environment. It's not exactly indoors, and it's not exactly outdoors. There's a garden here. If you look in the background, there's actually raised garden beds with little plants in them behind this angel. The angel is coming into this covered area, which looks sort of like a church. It has 3 arched windows like the choir of a church. And he says, Ave gratia plena Dominus tecum, hail full of grace, the Lord is with you. The Virgin is kneeling in front of a kind of cloth of honor. A dove is coming through the window, or on rays of light anyway, that are coming through the window. 3 rays of light, I would guess that's probably the Trinity, to her. But behind her, there's a bedroom with an open door. Now, given the fantasy quality of this scene, a bedroom would not seem to be a requirement for naturalism here. So the question is, what is that bedroom? Well, this I have to get a little technical, but there are a number of texts in the Bible that talk about enclosed spaces as a metaphor for the womb of the Virgin. And some of those enclosed spaces have doors. For example, Ezekiel 44, then the Lord said unto me, this door shall be shut. It shall not be opened. This is a door in the temple complex. It shall not be opened, and no man shall enter in by it, because the Lord, the God of Israel, entered in by it. Therefore, it shall be shut. So the idea of a closed door as being emblematic of the closed womb, and that the Virgin, only God enters that enclosed space. It's really about the perpetual virginity of Mary. So that's one of those texts. And I noticed when I went back to this triptych that the angel has materialized through a closed door. The door is shut, not open. So, and the bedchamber, where's that coming from? That's coming from one of my favorite Psalms. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Psalm 19, which is, the heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. In the heavens he has set a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, and like a strong man runs his course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and nothing is hid from its heat. So that metaphor, that image is of the sun coming out of his tent as a bridegroom, and in some texts it says it's a bridal chamber or his bed chamber, sometimes it's a tent, coming out of there and running his race, his circular race. So to illustrate that, I wanted to look at another work of art and also another hymn. So it's going to sound a lot like the first hymn because it's the same tune. But I want you to pay particular attention to the words. We're only going to sing verse 1 just to remind you. And then we're going to go over those words that you have on your handout. An old hymn, it's an Ambrosian hymn, and this is the English translation, but I just want to go over the words here. The virgin womb, that burden gained with virgin honor, all unstained. The banners there of virtue glow. God in his temple dwells below. So this is relating the womb of the virgin to God's temple. God is taking up temporary space on earth in the womb of the virgin. Forth from that chamber goeth he, that royal home of purity, a giant in twofold substance one, rejoicing now his course to run. So that would be the birth of Christ, coming forth from that chamber and then running his course like the sun runs his course. From God the Father he proceeds, to God the Father back he speeds. His course he runs to death and hell, returning on God's throne to dwell. So this is making, or the connection between Christ and the Son rising at the birth, and then running his life's course, and then descending and going back up to heaven to be with God. And then finally, the cradle here shall glitter bright, and darkness glow with newborn light. No more shall night extinguish day, where love's bright beams their power display. And I did check this translation against the Latin text of Ambrose, and it's pretty accurate for the most part. And that brings me to this wonderful painting, which is by somebody who we don't really know who this artist is. There is an artist named Robert Campen, and he's also called the Master of Flamal, but it would appear that there's actually several different artists who are grouped together under this name. We don't have any signed works by this group of artists. They obviously worked very close together, but they're obviously more than one hand. But we'll just, for simplicity's sake, we'll call him Robert Campen. And he worked also in the Netherlands. He is actually the founding father of this style. He is the earliest artist in this group. And he did this wonderfully complex painting on the birth of Christ, which shows Christ lying on the ground in the position of utmost humility. Nothing under him, just bare ground. And then the shepherds are coming. We have a kind of broken down shed here. And then there are additional characters. There's these two women on the side and angels, and they all have banderoles with helpful inscriptions on them. So who are all these people? Here is a close-up view, and I particularly think it's a lovely cow. I think that cow is excellent. This, by the way, this is the beginning of showing realistic objects in a realistic way. Hyper-realism, being able to observe nature. This is really the start where artists really get to the point where they're able to do that convincingly. And Campen is a master of this. So like the wood and the way, all the details are really wonderful. And then we have this child, and you notice that the rays of light are coming out of his body. And then these people, who are these people? These are two midwives who come from a story that was popular in the early Christian period, the Pseudo-Evangelium of James. It's one of those pseudo-apocryphal gospels. And that gospel book, or that text, tells a story that when the Virgin gives birth, she's assisted by midwives, and there's a midwife there who says, that Mary was a virgin. And the companion midwife says, I don't believe it. She says, I'm not going to believe that unless I touch it, unless I see it and touch it with my own hand. So, you'll have to excuse the graphic nature of this. She reaches into the virgin and she touches and verifies that indeed the virgin is a virgin, but her hand withers. And yeah, you can't really doubt, without getting in trouble. And then an angel comes to her and says, touch the child and you will be healed. So that's what all of this conversation in the banderols is about here. She's saying, unless I touch it, I will not believe it. The angel is saying, touch the child and you shall be healed. And the other woman here is holding a banderole saying, a virgin has given birth. So there we have the virgin giving birth, the child that is the result of that. But there's more. Here's a detail showing, I will only believe what I can touch. Touch the child and you will be healed. So we have both the believers, the naive believers who are the shepherds who didn't doubt for a minute that this was the case. And then we have the skeptical believers who are also Jews. These women are Jews, but they still are very skeptical and they have to have it proved to them what's going on. So this is all a demonstration of this remarkable thing. And what should be coming up over the horizon but the sun? This is, to my knowledge, perhaps the very first or one of the very first representations in Western art of an actual sun rising in that way, peeking over the mountaintop with the rays coming down, and those rays then corresponding to the rays of the Christ child who is the sun, who has come down to earth. And so that's just to remind us of that text, that wonderful text. So we have just sung this already. I anticipated myself. And now we turn to end with two pictures, both of them on the Magi. Just turn the page around so I know what I'm doing. Okay. So you're going to turn to the last page, which is page 6, and we are going to see this wonderful painting. This is not one of the world's greatest paintings. I don't think anybody has it on their list of must-have in your art history course. I happen to think I just found it. I think it's fabulous. It is a piece of eye candy, original eye candy. So the colors are bright, pink and green and blues, very bright, wonderful costumes. And this doesn't show the three kings coming to the Christ child directly. What it shows is them on their way. This thing is peculiar. On their way. And first of all, they are looking up into the heavens. Now this panel has a gold background. So the gold background, there is no star represented here. But you can tell they're looking up, and one of them actually has a round object that looks like it might be an astrolabe. So these astronomers in their separate countries looking at the Christ child, or looking at the star, and reading into the star and learning that they need to go. And then they come from their 3 separate directions, one here, and one here, and they come together. And each of them has musicians with them who are announcing their coming. So it's this grandiose scene of people in fancy dress coming. And then down below, well, let me start here. These are the 3 that are on, these are tiny little figures, right? I blew them up a lot. Tiny little figures on tops of their mountains. And you notice that they do have different characteristics. One of them is clearly from Africa. One of them is quite an old man. He's got a white beard. And the third one is a younger man with a turban. So these are not just kings. These are people from specific parts of the world. Asia, Africa, and Europe, presumably, which are the 3, what in the Middle Ages they thought of as the 3 regions of the earth. And then when they come together, we get to see all their wonderful horses, their fantastic headdresses, funny costumes. And then we see them again closer up, and we can confirm that they are coming. They represent three different categories of humanity. And that is, of course, part of the meaning of the Magi. These are Gentiles. They're coming from all the peoples of the earth, and they represent the three ages of man: youth, middle age, and old age, as well as three different continents. So, and then down below we have two prophets. Again, get back to the theme of prophecy with their prophets. One of them is I put it on your sheet. The kings of Tarshish and the isles shall offer tribute. The kings of Saba and Sheba shall bring gifts. And that's Psalm 72. So this is King David with his crown. And then over on the right, we have Isaiah, a very peculiar text from Isaiah. And they shall worship the prince of thy feet. Now that one is a little strange, but if you see it in context of the thing, that's the part of Isaiah where he talks about coming with camels and being overwhelmed with camels and from Sheba and from Saba. So I want to get to the song, but before I get to the song, that's sort of the standard way of showing the three kings. I want to end with a picture that probably, I don't know if anybody here has ever seen this picture. And this one takes a little bit of looking at. It's a totally different approach. It's still Netherlandish, but it's a century later. And this is by Peter Bruegel the Elder. I think this is probably, at least as far as I know, the very first example of depiction of snow falling in the world, actual snowfall. And the snowfall has the effect of really obscuring the scene to a degree. You can't see everything very exactly. I have given you a picture, but it's hard to see what's going on. It seems like there's people, it's a normal Netherlandish village in a hard freeze. The water is frozen. There is, however, a building, a very handsome building that is falling down and is being propped up with a stick. That makes me think that probably this building has something to do with those buildings we saw before. And then you see there is a sense of movement across this painting. And there's a couple of, they're not camels, there's a couple of donkeys, but they got a lot of package, a lot of back stuff on their backs that kind of give them a hump as they come. And where are they going? Can anyone see what the destination is here? Right, the extreme far left. And where are they coming to? So here's some details of what's going on. There's a little ominous detail here. Here is a hole in the ice. People are carrying water from the hole in the ice. But there's a child on a little, I guess a sled, something you can slide around on the ice with, who is rowing backwards in the direction of that hole. So there's kind of an ominous thing there that's waiting to happen. The people are not shown in any detail at all. They're like little smudgy, little dough people, like typical of Bruegel. But then when they come down to this area on the left, you know, well, here's your pack animals coming. And they don't look exotic, these people don't look exotic at all. But then when we get all the way here, there's a man in a decorated robe who's kneeling down, and half hidden in this broken down building is a woman with a child. So this also is a Magi scene, but a Magi scene that you have to spend a lot of time looking at to even recognize what it is. This is painted with extreme freedom, to the point where it might not even be true that this is finished, because the baby's just sketched in with a couple of marks, and the mother is not fully painted either. Now, why would Bruegel have done this? Bruegel is living at the time when the Spanish kings owned the Netherlands. And at this point, there is a lot of conflict in the Netherlands over religion. Protestantism has made its way, or in the middle of the 16th century, has made its way into the Low Countries. Many people are beginning to be rather sympathetic to Protestantism, but the Spaniards have introduced the Catholic Inquisition, and there's been a lot of violence directed at people for religious reasons, and a lot of violence directed at them for political reasons. The local people hate being their Spanish overlords. And so now it's not simple anymore to represent a Catholic theology or a story from Catholic theology. They have to rethink this, and he's setting it into a contemporary time because, and he's done this with other things as well, because he wants us to think, you know, is it just in ancient times that people couldn't find a place to live, or that, you know, people were being oppressed, a population was being oppressed, and a savior was born for them? These people are being oppressed, and they're thinking about that. So, and it's interesting that also this painting forces you into it, forces you to look at it. Now, here's a little detail. Bruegel was extremely famous during his time. He was very successful. He didn't paint a whole lot of paintings, but he had children, and the children copied his work. So this is a painting by his son, Peter Bruegel II, the younger, and he was copying them because he wants to sell them, right? And all of a sudden, he fixes the painting so that no longer is it obscure. He gets rid of all the snowfall, he brightens up the colors, he definitely decorates his donkeys with bizarre, let's see if I have pictures of some of these things. So there's the original and there's the copy. His donkeys have all these strange blinders on and decorated costumes. The kings are much more obviously kingly, much easier to make out, and the characters here, you can tell what's going on almost immediately. There's nothing obscure here. And that's telling us that the first painting no longer was appealing, and so to sell it, that's what he did. Hello. So there's some close-ups of that. Wow. It's still kind of carelessly painted because he's producing a lot of them. This is one of several copies that he did. So that's what I have for you today. And I want to end by singing, obviously, We Three Kings. So shall we do that? I want you particularly to get excited when you get to Myrrh's Mine, Its Bitter Perfume. You gotta really act that part out. So this is on your, the music isn't there, it's just the words, but you all know them. This is one I was pretty confident you all knew the tunes.
Oh
you all so much. Eric is actually taking inscriptions for the choir right now. And I want to thank you all very much for the opportunity to speak to you. Did you have a question?
I do. In the beginning, you said you were going to tell us the secret of those holes in the painting, and I never heard the secret.
Oh,
of
you
the
didn't
holes.
hear that part. The holes are where the people who walk in darkness are hanging out prior to the coming of the Christ.
Oh, okay.
They who are, what is it called? Languishing in the shadow of death.
Yeah, you fell in that hole. And you're
Yeah, they're all down in hell because until Christ comes, they're not going to be able to come up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all very much. And Eric, thank you so much for your